Okay, it's 6:30. I think we can go ahead and start. My name is Christopher Moore. I've lived in Thailand for about 30 plus years. Been a law professor, a lawyer, novelist, and essayist, and someone who has a commitment to do something about climate change. Foremost, I'm a storyteller, and I think the important story of our time is the story of what's happening with our climate here in Thailand and around the world. The question is how to tell the story in a powerful way. There are kind of three ways you can understand what's going on with climate change. One of those is through the science. Part of the problem with telling the story with science is the language is mathematical. You have to have a high degree of understanding of symbolic math, simulations, modeling, these kinds of scientific inquiries to understand when scientists say, don't you see the beauty in the equation? I've seen lots of equations, but I've never seen beauty in one because I don't quite have the ability to understand what that beauty is. So science in some ways has had a very difficult time telling the story of climate change. People are turned off by that because they don't understand it. It's like listening to a language you don't understand. The other way that we understand climate change is through words. Lots of studies, lots of reports, lots of news items about climate change. It's very difficult to read a newspaper or as a piece of social media without coming across some aspect of climate change. It's basically everywhere. And so you ask, why has that not made a big difference? Part of it is, again, it's the language. The language of words only take us so far. And that language so far hasn't taken us far enough in terms of how we understand climate change, what needs to be done as a result of climate change. The third way of dealing with climate change to bring awareness is visualization. Now, it seemed to me that that was the way forward in bringing awareness of climate change impact to Thais in Thailand. So that's a little bit of the background behind why I thought it would be a good idea 1 year ago to explore setting up a climate change film festival. It was an idea a year ago. The wonderful thing is when you find an idea like that, that takes off. That it's an idea that other people are willing to get behind, to be generous with their time and with their guidance. And I've been very fortunate in that regard to have an advisory board of some very distinguished people, of which you will be meeting very soon on this panel. They have shown real leadership. They've shown what it is amongst the Thai community to gather as a group in order to do something that brings us closer to maybe not final solutions, but to solutions that will help others. Welcome to the Canadian ambassador and her husband. Thank you for coming today. The problem with visualization, we've seen a lot of documentaries on climate change. We see a lot of news reports, but almost all of it's very depressing. It's negative. It gives us a sense of hopelessness, that we're dealing with something that is beyond any government control, any personal control. People have turned off. When you feed people a constant stream of negative images, a constant stream of ideas that you are in a hopeless time, they don't want to listen. So people turn away. What this festival is looking at climate change and the impact in Thailand from a point of view of where we can find hope. And where we're looking for hope is in local community action. We're looking at indigenous wisdom and knowledge and experience. We want, in particular, young Thai filmmakers to tell us the story of what the impact is in their community, on their life, their family's life, their community's life, and to show, visualize with that story positive steps that have been taken to mitigate, reduce the impact of climate change, to adapt to climate change. So it's through that process which we hope that will receive entries of these short films of less than 10 minutes that will show us a way that indeed people are coping. There are things people can do. And there are positive projects in this country that will inspire other people to do similar kinds of things in their communities and will, I believe, inspire other countries to follow some of the things that are being done here in Thailand. What I would like to do is to recognize our two very generous sponsors tonight, and we're very fortunate because we had sponsors who've shown that they've believed in this project from the start. Thinking of Mr. Jim Golkin, who's here on behalf of Siam Canadian, who's founded a half a dozen schools over a 15-year period in Thailand. He was donating the money based on basically, I think this is a good project, I think you should do it. So thank you, Siam Canadian, for your support. And we have Singha Estate, Kun Jeep and Kun Om, who are here today, and they were very blessed to have met them and to have their support. They have been leaders in environmental and climate change activities for a number of years. They can see that what we're doing aligns with their interest of trying to get a message out. They have very important projects in the south and in the north that involve environment and climate change activity. And so we're very pleased to be able to work with Singha Estate, and thank you very much for your support. And we also have tonight, I mentioned earlier, the new ambassador from Canada, Ambassador Sheila Taylor and her husband. Thank you very much for being here tonight and supporting us. We also have a member of the UNDP here. We have Thai PBS here. We have a lot of people who've come to support what we're doing in this project. I'd like to introduce our panel, and after the panel takes their place, we'll show you the promotional film that we've made that explains what our mission is, what our purpose, and why we're doing it now. So I would like to introduce our panel. I'd like Kun Sanit Suda Ekachai to stand and please come up on stage. Kun Sanit Suda is one of the veteran journalists on environmental and social issues in Thailand. I think almost everyone in this room will have read her columns over the years, powerful columns in the Bangkok Post. She has special interest in indigenous people and communities, and those are the kinds of communities that we wish to draw into this festival. So thank you very much for joining us, and she will be part of the panel tonight. Also, we have on the panel Hugo, who is one of Thailand's leading singers and songwriters, someone who has a particular voice that once you hear it, you will want to hear it again and again. He speaks from the heart in his songs, and he comes to this project with his heart as well, and he's given us an enormous amount of support. Thank you, Hugo. Next is Dr. Pusakorn Siriasan, who is a UN consultant and is undertaking as an advisor to a major climate change study in Thailand with regard to climate change and gender. So she's bringing a lot of experience from her field trips throughout the country, particularly with Ministry of Health and others, to give us better connections with local communities and better understanding of what is happening in these local communities and who are the kind of people that we should be looking to submit films for our festival. Lastly, so if we could have a hand for our project coordinator, Simona, has been absolutely fantastic. She's organized, she's planned, she's done everything and more. So I think what I will do is I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and what we'll do is screen, this is the premiere of our promo film. Please enjoy. Once it's finished, the panel will, under the guidance of the moderator, Kun Simona, answer a number of questions, and then it will be open to the audience to answer or to ask questions. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I hope you enjoy what follows.
เรากำลังเห็นการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพอากาศในประเทศไทยที่ยิ่งกว่าสภาวะโลกร้อน
ภูมิอากาศกำลังเปลี่ยนแปลงร้ายแรงขึ้นเรื่อยๆไม่ใช่แค่อุณหภูมิที่สูงขึ้นเท่านั้นสภาวะอากาศสุดโต่งมีบ่อยขึ้นน้ำท่วมรุนแรงขึ้น
ฝนทิ้งช่วงยาวขึ้นแล้งนานขึ้นและหนักขึ้น
ไฟป่าลุกลามจำนวนสัตว์ป่าลดลงปลูกพืชผลไม่ได้ตามฤดูน้ำเริ่มขาดแคลน
น้ำเสียฝุ่นพิษอากาศร้อนจัดมีผลกระทบต่อสุขภาพของคนไทยเจ็บป่วยเสียชีวิตจากมลพิษสารก่อมะเร็งในปอดและสารก่อการกลายพันธุ์มากขึ้นเรื่อยๆทุกปีเมื่อการเปลี่ยนแปลงกลายเป็นวิกฤตปัญหาการขาดน้ำขาดอาหารก็จะตามมา
วิกฤตการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพอากาศมีผลกระทบต่อเราทุกคนเราต้องร่วมใจรับมือกับมันไม่ใช่แค่เพื่อเราเองแต่เพื่อลูกของเราเพื่อหลานของเราเพื่อทุกคนเพราะมันคืออนาคตของพวกเขา
แต่แค่พูดมันไม่พอเราต้องลงมือท
ำนั่นคือเหตุผลที่ผมเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของเทศกาลหนังสั้นโลกป่วยเราต้องเปลี่ยน 2020
เราจะเลือกหนังสั้นที่น่าสนใจที่สุดมาฉายในเทศกาลหนังในเดือนพฤศจิกายนนี้
ผมอยากจะชวนทุกคนมาเล่าเรื่องผ่านเลนส์ของคุณถ่ายทอดชีวิตที่เปลี่ยนไปออกมาเป็นหนังสั้น
มาแสดงให้คนเห็นว่าการเปลี่ยนแปลงนี้มีผลต่อชีวิตคุณและคนรอบข้างคุณยังไง
ผมอยากเห็นหนังของคุณ
เราเชื่อว่าคนไทยสามารถช่วยกันเรียนรู้และแก้ปัญหาไปด้วยกัน
เราเชื่อว่าเสียงของคนรุ่นใหม่จะเป็นแรงบันดาลใจเราขอเชิญคุณมาทำหนังสั้น
มาร่วมกับเราเตรียมรับมือกับอนาคตของคุณของเราของทุกคนมาร่วมกับเราในเทศกาลหนังสั้นโลกป่วยเราต้องเปลี่ยน 2020
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Christopher, for giving such a great introduction to our project. And before we start the panel, I just would like to also give thanks to Sang Foundation, who has been a foundation that we are sheltering under. Because of them, we are able to start this wonderful project. As you can see from our promo film, we are talking about rallying people to send in their films to us, and it will be a competition, and we are encouraging professionals and also generals, so youth, young people, or people who have no experience in filmmaking to join us in making a film about climate change. So all of the members here are advisory board members, and we are here just to discuss why now, why Thailand, and why this festival and why this year. So maybe start with Kun Hugo.
So there's never a right time. I guess when there is an environmental crisis, I think it has to be now. As far as Thailand, that's where we are based, and I think there's also an opportunity for the debate to leave the whether climate change is happening debate. Just leave it and let people have that, and just go to the mitigation side, and we take it as read that it's happening, and also open the opportunity for people outside of the political media arena to maybe submit their thoughts and opinions, because I'm sure a more diverse view on the situation as it is on the ground would be helpful in illuminating people who maybe won't be affected first. Thailand is a very agrarian society still, and they are working directly in the environment. I think I couldn't imagine a better group of people to let us know what exactly is going on and what they are doing to mitigate it. And I think Thailand is also home to a lot of holistic local knowledge, and has at certain times in its history maybe been quite well prepared for flooding, for climate-related difficulties. So maybe some of that knowledge could be shared back to the urban centers as well.
Thank you. So I think it's very good that you mentioned mitigation and positive changes in the local knowledge and from communities, because that's what we would like to focus on in our film festival. We want to be, we're not in the blame and shame game. We're more of like positive change, how people are working, coming together as community to help this. So, but what do you mean by positive change? Can Art give some examples of these stories, that the changes we are seeing now in our communities in Thailand?
I think I would like to share a story. Just last week, I was in Khon Kaen, and I went to see this model village, naturally modern village, is Tambon, to see how people are adapting to extreme heat. Because it's been getting really hot in Thailand. We, in the past several years, we have had record extreme temperature over hitting 44 degrees. That's very, very hot in 9 provinces. And in this province, Khon Kaen, which is not one of the 9, the Ministry of Health has worked with the local villagers and helping them to understand, because about what is happening and why are they having more dengue fevers, why are they having, you know, why older people are getting sick more, you know, and babies are not doing well. So they have, you know, they've come together and talk among themselves and do something about it with the support of Ministry of Health. So they do like cool room, cool land, like they are growing more trees, planting more trees, you know, turning the temple ground into, you know, something, a place that is really cool, turning the local health clinic, converted some of the space into a cool place where people who are suffering from heat stroke can come and take respite. Something like this. But there are also a lot of places which Pisa Nitsuda will explain from her experience, where in the communities, people know, people in the rural area, they know what's happening because they live with it every day. And in many pockets of Thailand, they're already starting to do something about it because they have to. This is living with it, and they have to adapt, and they have to find some ways, you know. When we talk about positive changes, it means the people on the ground or businesses, like, you know, some people who start green business projects and ecotourism, for example, and people in the local areas, they take initiatives, they're empowered, they come together and realize that we have to do something about it and actually take action and make something and try to overcome these challenges which more and more which will come. I think I will stop here.
Yeah, thank you. So you're saying some people, they don't have a choice. They have to change. They have to adapt right now. Right now, the discussion about climate change in Bangkok, maybe it's based around, oh, plastic, we have to stop using plastic or whatever, but we would like to be a platform to tell people there's more than that. There's many different aspects about climate change, and there's many different ways you can do as a community, as a person, or as a business to help with this.
Yeah, and what aspect of people having to adapt, it has to do with livelihood. It's life or death. It's food or no food. So I'm sorry, I'm adding one story. Like in Khon Kaen, there's a village, about 90-some households. They used to be rice farmers. They couldn't grow rice anymore because the soil is too salty. There's not enough water. So what do? Well, they suffered. They couldn't grow rice anymore, so they became day laborers. And Luk Jang, so that's very unsustainable. And in an up country, you can't get jobs every day. And if you do, it's like only 300 baht a day. So you couldn't really survive very well on that. Not that, growing rice makes a lot of money. But what happens was, they had ideas and they turned their rice fields into fish farms. So, and they pump water from the local rivers. They're doing well now. But what happens in the next 10 years, we don't know.
Thank you. So maybe I would like to ask Kun Sanitsuda, as a veteran journalist, you focus on social justice, the environment, and also human rights. In your years of working, what have you seen in like mainly the indigenous people or like the people in the villages? Do you have a story about how they have been adapting to climate change or how they're suffering from these changes?
My stories are not about people trying to adapt. It's about people who try to protect or preserve their homes and what they are doing and their success, their obstacles, and there are success stories and there are also ongoing struggles. It's not only, accepting the situation and trying to adapt. That is not the stories that I'm telling. Okay? So we know that the forest is the biggest carbon sink, and we need to protect our forest in order for us all to survive. But for the people who live in the forest or near the forests are their homes. And they have been living there for generations. They have their way of life, they have their traditions, they have their wisdom, the local knowledge of how to live more or less close, more or less in harmony with nature without disturbing the environment too much. And they sustain, the word sustainability right now, they have been doing that for generations. And they are the ones who are facing a lot of difficulties living there, because the forest in our country, in Thailand, are not seen as their homes, but the properties of the forestry department or the government. And they are seen as illegal incursions. They are subjected to violence, evictions, and they are illegal. They are sent to jail, they are persecuted, their homes are burned, they get relocated, so they suffer so much for these policies. While we in cities, we think that we have so many things to learn from the local ways of life, how they can, because when we talk about biodiversity. We know how important it is for our world, but we in the city, we know very little about the use or the, but they know. And these people, we are destroying them, we are evicting them, and we in the cities are not really care about that situation, and because we believe in the prejudice that the government have been putting in our heads, that there are non-Thais, there are, that. So there are, this is like complaining, but also there a lot of them have been very successful in preserving their homes, and the government recognized them, giving them awards. This for this little village, that small village, but the policy hasn't changed. So if we realize that these local communities and indigenous people are crucial for our survival, we have to do more than just seeing them as people that we would like to see, tourists and going to see their village, their way of life, and we need to do more than that. We need to change policies.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea of how we as a people have to come together and try to make change. Mainly, the idea of this film festival, well, if you, the panelists can add to me, is that we want to be the dots, we want to connect the dots, we want to help communities connect these dots, because indigenous people in the rural area that are facing the problems, they might not know about how to mitigate. But if they're here...
No, they do know, Simona, they do. And they're doing very good work. Like you asked me to tell you about examples. There are villages in the south who have preserved their mangrove forests, and that's why they have been spared from the tsunami, for example. But they have done that by fighting the loggers. See, up in the north, there are villages in Chiang Mai, so many villages, they have preserved, they protected their local forests, and that's why the forests are still good for us, as carbon sinks, for city people, but they're their homes, and still, they are still subjected to eviction. So we need to go there and learn what they're doing, how they are protecting their forests, what obstacles, what success, what failure, we have to do that. But at the same time, we have to put it in a larger context of, it's not just a feel-good story, but a larger context of what they're doing amid policy that are working against them.
Right.
That's my
Thank you. It's a bit like it's ideas from all the panelists, but I would like to add more on how people in the local, they know how to fix this, but why we as a group of the film festival, why are we encouraging young people to go down and talk about this? Why do you think it's important to encourage the young generations now to go out and make this kind of short films about these topics?
Well, it's mainly it's their future. And also, with any great change, it seems like Christopher was saying earlier, I think a sense of narrative is very important. And the development narrative has been that profit and free markets and exploitation of natural resources is the way to lift people out of poverty. And the state that they are in now, whatever it is, whether they like it or not, we will call that poverty. And when they are in a concrete house with all their valuable goods on the ground floor so they can be flooded, they are now not in poverty. And so maybe a series of films made from varying perspectives could introduce at least another narrative that, yet, of course, the profit motive is responsible for a lot of development, but that there are other goods that are just as important, and these are not moral, ethical goods. These are things like clean air, like a livable environment, or like rice, which as Thais we like to eat so much, we're just not going to have it.
Yes.
If there isn't. So maybe our role rather than as opposed to an activist, is simply to be a repository for alternate narratives about alternate values and goods that I'm sure are not necessarily in direct conflict with development or with any of these things, or even being entertaining. But it's not enough just to profit and be entertained. I don't think that's an acceptable value set without these other things, which I think at this point are goods in of themselves, whether it's to do with climate change, whether it's to do with pollution or air quality. There's no point in being incredibly wealthy where you can't breathe and eat the things that you used to eat as a kid. So, these are also aesthetic. I think there's an aesthetic argument that's not moral or ethical or anything to do with that. It's simply, from the point of view of an artist, to be denied nature in its as diverse as possible with all its forms would be to be denied a source of inspiration, would be to be denied a source of comfort and wonder, and it would be a shame to reduce Thai culture moving forward to a sort of air-conditioned glass marble mall with all the products of Europe available to be bought. I don't think that is a satisfactory ambition.
Right, it's not something that we would like to have leave for our future children and the younger generation.
Maybe more. I mean, I don't run it down. I'm sure it's delightful, but I think some alternate, maybe our film festival could produce alternate things to value, to strive for amongst a young generation and into the entertainment business at large, which is in a large part responsible for propagating a certain worldview that I think will lead to our destruction.
Thank you. Now I would like to move on to talk more about the structure of the film festival, because a lot of people have been coming to ask us, like, Bailey, so what's the film about? How many films do you have? But actually, we're launching today. We still have 0 films. We would like to invite all of you, the public, professionals, general people, to send us the film, to come and talk to us about what films they can do. And I would like maybe you all to talk a bit more in detail about the structure of our film festival.
I think the idea is that I want to go back to pick up on what Hugo said earlier about building narrative, maybe alternative narratives. I think we are in the business of telling stories, and the stories from sectors that haven't been given enough platform, especially stories from outside of Bangkok. Of course, there's stories from Bangkok too. We are all suffering. But compared to people living in the front line, farmers who have no water, lots of farmers right now who can't plant rice, not even one season, both seasons. And in some places, 2-3 years already, they're in debt. Okay, and people who are living downstream with poisoned water, something like that. I think we want to see more stories from the areas, corners of Thailand, the front line, where we haven't seen enough of. And we are hoping that by showing the impacts on the real people and that the things that local people already have initiatives and knowledge and technology to deal with that. We want to see more so that we city people can see what's going on, because we do tend to have this pretty patronizing view that, okay, they don't know, they don't understand, but actually they do very well too. So the idea is to get more of these stories, and how, there are 2 ways. There are professional filmmakers who can do whatever story that they would like to, and we hope to build a story bank of these stories that we are accepting. We will be accepting not only films or audition tapes, but also stories from the ground. And so we will have story bank. And for the general category, aspiring filmmakers or youth groups or whoever, it doesn't have to be youth, but we do encourage youth, older people can as well. But those who need support of filmmaking, we will try to provide support as well, just as script doctor who would have worked with the script or even production. So we might have, with adequate, funding, we will organize workshop, filmmaking workshop, and also we'll try to match the skills with the story. There may be filmmakers who want to make story, but don't yet have to make a film, but don't yet have a story. Because right now we already have several stories, in several provinces. So, and that's the general idea, and I will give it to you in terms of timeline.
Right. Okay. So we're just gonna move forward with the rough timeline right now. Our main festival will be in November, the 21st and the 22nd of November. We are very happy to get a venue at BACC, the Bangkok Art and Cultural Center, and that will be where we will be screening our 10 winning films from both categories. So 5 from 2 days, from 5 from professionals and 5 from the general public. So the timeline right now is we have our launch day, and in February we're going to start taking submissions. We have unofficial people coming to us right now, like, oh, I have this very interesting story. Can I do this? Can I do that? So we'll be officially launching that in February. And if you have a story but you don't have the skills to do a film, please submit in your stories, whether it's an essay or a video. We'll be happy to take a look at that. And but for professionals, people who are filmmakers already, please feel free to send us your short films, which will be anywhere up until 10 minutes. And for whether it's 1 minute or 10 minutes, we're happy to see it. So please send in. We'll be taking in submissions until September. And then we have a panel of judges to kind of select the winning films. Yes, we have awards. So we're still finalizing the awards, but it's going to be, we're trying to come up with something good. And maybe now, can we discuss a bit about, because a lot of people have been asking, so how will you judge the criteria of what will be the winning films? Maybe if you
will judge them with extreme prejudice.
No, we cannot.
No. The board, I think, will try and select a panel of judges over the next few meetings. Hopefully, we will have representatives from the NGO community who could maybe speak to the veracity of the story, of whether this is an accurate depiction. And then I would hope to invite some real filmmakers and maybe journalists and academics as well.
Which we will be inviting those people along the way, not for the judging as well, but meanwhile for our mentoring program, we would like to work together also with universities or with schools around Thailand if they would like to incorporate our program into maybe their studies, their project that the students can submit in, because not only are we giving mentoring, but we are hoping to give funding to people, to aspiring film artists who have very promising stories to tell. We would like to help them support with this. It's not a lot of money, but just enough to get them started and enough to get them making a high quality film technically as well. So another thing before we finish, because we have to head over to the Mekong, I would like to maybe each leave a final message to people to encourage them to submit in their films, or maybe stories, or any word of advice. Yes, please.
Just tell your story. Just tell. There are a lot of communities out there who want to tell their stories, but they don't know people who have the tools and the skills, and they need you. They need you to tell their stories to help save the world, and save them first, save the world, and save us.
Thank you.
Yeah, to all my colleagues in show business, your decadence must end now. Repent, come over to the light, and please submit your work. I won't be a judge. The judges will be qualified, I promise you, and they will be impartial and fair.
I don't know what to say other than that we are really all in this together, despite whatever differences. We're on the same planet, so let's do something about it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. We're finishing a little early because we're going to move on to the main stage for the Mekong, where we also screening our promo as well. So thank you. Oh, questions. Are we doing questions? Do we have time to do questions? Okay, we have a bit of time. Maybe if anybody have any questions from the audience, we are happy to give you maybe technical or anything from the panelists.
Okay, I got a completely off-the-wall question. I know a couple of talented students that are in film animation programs. Would an animated film be acceptable?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be great because you know, animation can definitely accomplish a lot of things easier than trying to get that to happen in front of the camera. We would really encourage it. I would love to see an animation.
Thank you. We have no criteria. Like we are happy to see from animation, film, or VR. Any, yeah, if creativity, go for it. Anything.
Yeah, I got an idea for somebody who, and me and Christopher were talking about this earlier. You know, you mentioned about the indigenous people having all this knowledge, and they've been fighting climate change for, you know, quite some time. I mean, they're very skilled. They have knowledge of how to protect the earth. Well, you know, a lot of these people, from what I see, and I've dealt a lot with the Aka tribe, you know, these people are terrified to come down from their villages and everything, but they have quite a bit of knowledge. But also, the reason why we're not getting these knowledge is because they lack hope. And we talked about how important hope is for these people, right? So a lot of the things, and you may know a lot about this, up in our indigenous communities, they're starting to grow hemp, right? Like, pretty soon, Thailand's gonna have a very large hemp industry. And hopefully, you know, the indigenous people may be a part of that. And that's a great crop to fight climate change for a number of reasons. You know, when you all have time, you can go research it. I mean, that's something that, that would tell a great story about, you know, the indigenous communities, you know, because that has a lot to do with policy. For this to happen properly, we need to have our government come in and allow these people who have been growing hemp for thousands of years, for religious purposes, to build their homes, to build all this. They have all this knowledge. But they're not giving out the knowledge for a number of... Yeah, because they're arrested, right? So we need to change this policy, right? We need to do things like that, and that's going to give these people hope, and that's going to allow them to feel like they're going to have a future, and they're going to start giving this knowledge out. And then we can all share that knowledge with each other and use that and really help fight climate change. And I think that would be an amazing story to tell. Me and, you know, Chris and I talked about that, so if anyone is interested in telling that story, they may be quite great.
I think that's a great example because you don't really think it's a direct impact.
When we say hemp, that's what we mean.
We have two more questions.
Hello, I'm from UNDP. I'm working for the Environment and Climate Change team. We've been involved in environment and climate change for decades, and we are happy to support the filmmakers. We have a lot of stories, and you can go to our project site, talk to the people that we work with, or yes, please feel free to come to see me, and I'm gonna leave my contact to know.
Thank you.
Kat.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you. This is what we are hoping for, people who have the resources to help us as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, hi. My name is Ingo. So this is not Europe. If a film festival like this would be funded by the Ministry of Culture, here you mentioned funding. I can imagine that young filmmakers and also like this general public, that they probably lack funding to produce. So, like, what is the situation on funding? Will you be able to support young filmmakers, one? And how can, you know, kind of like the civil society or the business community or private people maybe also get involved to maybe contribute towards that?
We already have here the first two very generous sponsors, Yam Canadian and Singha Estate. And we are hoping that we will get more support from the private sector. And we believe that there is interest from the private sector. And we are also hoping that there would be support from the public sector as well, whether that be embassies or international organizations, and perhaps even government. And in terms of funding for filmmaking, the production, we are hoping that we would have enough funding to fund some selected projects that are very interesting, that we feel that the stories need to be told.
So if filmmakers apply, should they indicate their need for funding in the application?
Yes,
Yeah.
so we're going to have to if you would like to submit in a fully completed film, that's great, that's perfect. But if you would like to ask for funding, please send it to us first, and then we'll select. Right now we can fund 10 films, but we are hoping to fund more. So if you indicate that, send us an essay or an audition tape or a storyline, whatever, we are happy to look at that. Thank you.
Okay, hello, thank you for the invitation. My name is Mary Niemeyer. I'm the director of the Goethe Institute, and I would be very happy to cooperate with you, because we have this worldwide network, and I think one important point is perhaps to connect you with bigger film festivals like the Berlin Film Festival 1 year later. So that could be perhaps a good link to find ways for professionals to help the filmmakers. Right. Because I can imagine that there are some young people in the villages which really have a very good story, but they need help to do it in a very professional way. And I would just promise you, if you like, we can change our card, and we would be very happy to be part of it.
Thank you so much. That's we can continue this discussion later. Thank you for coming as well, and I think that is great, because we believe that there's many young people who would like to tell a story, but they are too afraid to, like, oh, I have no skills, and that would be perfect. So I think that is. Anybody have any more questions, or just one more, and then we are good to go?
Thank you. You talk about young filmmakers. How do you define a young filmmaker for those here who may see themselves as eternally young?
Well, we don't have any age numbers yet.
It's a general disposition. Maybe a 5-minute conversation, and then we'll decide whether you're young or not. And your voting record.
No, but I mean, is it that they've never made a film before, or is it aged?
Well, we have no age limit at all.
No, you could be a film student studying film, or just someone putting something together on your iPhone, sending it to us, or sending a script that sounds interesting, and then you would become a young filmmaker through our process, we would hope.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. So thank you everybody for coming in today, and hopefully we stay in touch and keep, if you would like to know more information, please come to our website or follow us on all our social media accounts. Thank you.